What's that sound? It's For Amusement Only, the EM and Bingo Pinball podcast. Welcome back to For Amusement Only. This is Nick Baldridge. Tonight I wanted to talk about one of the earliest, if not the earliest, pinball machine. July of 1931, a game called Bingo was produced by the Bingo Novelty Manufacturing Company. A month later, Gottlieb and Company was incorporated and took on the task of production for this game. Initially, it was produced by Bingo Novelty Company, and apparently they weren't able to keep up with demand. Now, this can be inferred by the sheer number of companies that Gottlieb sub-licensed this to for production. There was Keeney, Specialty, Fields, and others over time. But the Playfield's initial design was created by Bingo Novelty Company. Gottlieb's price for this game was $16.50 in 1931. This is for a new in-the-box game. Now let's talk about the actual gameplay. This was produced in two different versions in its initial form, and apparently configurable as far as the number of balls. I see a couple different versions on IPDB with either 5 balls for 1 cent or 7 balls for 1 cent. And this game was also sold in a 5-cent version, but it appears that the penny version was more common. Now, this game came in a replay or novelty playfield design. Let's handle the novelty version because the replay only has one specific difference. The game has your typical shooter lane with a plunger that you pull back far enough and a ball is loaded into the shooter lane. When you plunge the ball, you're ideally aiming to get it all the way down the playfield to a specially marked hole marked 500. But arranged in a diamond pattern, almost right in the middle of the playfield, you have these large circles surrounded by pins with a gate. This gate has a flap that allows entrance. You can only get into one of these circles by going in the top center. You can't get in from the side or from the bottom, only from the top center. The top circle is worth 100 points. The one to the right is worth 200. The one to the left is worth 300, and the one at the bottom is worth 400. Directly below the 400 point value, you have a 500 point value. Now, all the way on the left side is a gate that's worth 0 points. On the bottom and to the right of the 0 point chute, you have a 25 point hole, and all the way to the right, beside the shooter lane, you have a 25 point hole. To the left and right of the 500 point circle, you have 50 point holes. So, obviously the danger is, of course, that you're going to land in a pocket that you don't expect to land in. And with either 5 or 7 balls, it's quite possible that several of them will be duds. Now, let's talk about the replay version. This game doesn't have replays in the traditional sense. You would have to get a barkeep or operator, somebody who actually owned and ran the machine to give you a free game. At least I believe. I've never played one of these, and I'm not sure mechanically if there's some kind of aspect that somehow disables the coin slide. Speaking of the coin slide, this game has one of the really cool 1-cent coin slides that move from left to right. So you put a penny in on the right-hand side and then shift the slide over to the right in kind of a half-circle motion. And it will release the trapped balls. Now, let's talk about the artwork. The artwork appears to vary based on who was actually manufacturing this, but the main kind of thrust of it is that bingo is featured prominently in kind of the arch area of the playfield. It's also written on the instruction card. Now, the bingo on the playfield is written as if it has some speed going on, and that's because it's following what appears to be a shooting star. Underneath the word bingo, the words game of skill appear. On the machines that Gottlieb manufactured, at least, there's a small placard which sits at the top of the playfield above the playfield glass that also says bingo. And this is bolted or screwed into the frame surrounding the playfield glass. On the left and right hand sides of the cabinet, there is a branded or otherwise carved design that is best described, I suppose, as most of an arrow pointing towards the shooter rod. In this arrow is the word bingo. Up at the top left and top right of the playfield, there are wooden blocks that form the arch, and these are covered in decorative paint, green and yellow, and appear to be wings. Now, one thing I didn't mention is the playfield itself is green. The only picture on IPDB of the replay version shows a more bluish tint, but this could just be due to age. It's really hard to say, since those machines are almost 100 years old. So I'm willing to bet that there's going to be some variation in the coloration of the playfield, especially because there were so many different companies that manufactured them. So now, I don't think I mentioned the difference between the novelty and replay versions. I got through all that talk about how you would redeem a free play, but I didn't talk about what that actually involved. To the left and right, below the number 400 but above the number 500 circles, there were two very small circles marked free game. So let's talk a minute about the game's flyer from Gottlieb. This flyer was, well, it was really an ad in a magazine called Automatic Age. The ad's dated September of 1931, and this was the month that Gottlieb started manufacturing bingo. It says, "Notice, by virtue of a contract with the Bingo Novelty Company of Chicago, the D. Gottlieb and Company has taken over manufacture and distribution of the Bingo. A fascinating game, chock full of fun and thrills in a beautiful and well-constructed cabinet of solid walnut, A simple mechanical construction made of the best and most suitable materials. 1,000 machines already in operation in Chicago and making real money for the local operators. Sample price, $16.50. FOB, Chicago. Right for quantity prices. The dimensions were 24 by 16 by 7, and the shipping weight was 24 pounds. Now, Gottlieb guaranteed satisfaction, or they would refund your purchase price within 10 days. Now, IPDB also has a Marketplace magazine ad, also from Gottlieb, that varies from the Automatic Age ad in a couple of key respects. First of all, it puts the price per game at 5 balls for 1 cent. And second, it has the following interesting quotation. To the operators comes an important announcement from D. Gottlieb and Company that production on their bingo machine has reached a stage whereby they can fill all orders promptly, and they ask that the operators place their orders with their nearest distributors, who are as follows. Bingo Novelty Company, Atlanta Amuse You Company, Automatic Amusement Company, Irving Bromberg, FC Ewing Company, Keeney & Sons, Silent Sales Company, and Vending Machine Company. Now, some of those names you'll recognize from the beginning of this particular episode as manufacturers of this game. And, of course, Bingo Novelty Company began as the sole producer of this game before they licensed it to D. Gottlieb. Now, what's interesting about this is that likely those listings on IPDB are because Gottlieb received so many orders for these games through these distributors that they eventually gave some of them limited license to manufacture these games on their own for their own customers. Now, as far as the difference between 5 balls and 7 balls, that may have been just something that a particular operator decided to do to give people more of a chance to win. It may be that the game was always intended from the factory to have 5 balls. This game, like many early 30s games, looks like a heck of a lot of fun. I mean, I'll probably not review a game on this show that I don't think is a lot of fun. And the reason that I find these games fun is not because of their flashing lights or their amazing sounds, their bells or their chimes, because most of these games don't have any. Some of them may experiment with a bell on the playfield or something similar, but for the most part, the only sound you hear are the marbles rolling on the playfield as you try to knock them into specific holes. The fun comes in playing with a friend, or in trying to best your score. And really on this game, because there is no tilt mechanism, honesty rules the day. These early 30s games, and especially this game, use balls which are very small, about the size of a marble, and in most cases actually marbles. So the physics of this game, even though the playfield is smaller than on a standard size pinball machine, the gameplay is quite different. You have to nudge quite a bit without going crazy, because this cabinet doesn't weigh very much, especially in comparison with one of the standard machines that we're used to today, which of course are packed to the gills with heavy brackets and so forth, and large playfields, and a large cabinet, and metal legs, and the list goes on. IPDB speculates that this game may have been sold as both a countertop and with a stand, but of course you don't see that in any of the ads. It's just that the stand in one of the pictures looks so very much like it's part of the machine that it's hard to imagine that it would have been created separately, especially because it's stained in the same way as the machine which is resting on it, and it fits very snugly underneath the edges of the machine. Well, that's all for tonight. Thank you very much for joining me. My name again is Nick Baldridge. You can reach me at foramusementonlypodcast@gmail.com, or you can call me on the Bingos line. That's 724-BINGOS1, 724-246-4671. You can listen to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google, Pocket Casts, via RSS, on Facebook, on Twitter at Bingo Podcast. You can follow me on Instagram at nbaldridge, or you can listen to us on our website, which is foramusementonly.libsyn.com. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.